Hello and welcome to the We All Follow podcast. My name is Matt Fox. I am your host, back from international duty with a fresh shirt to claim for it. We're back, Nigel.
Hell
You
yeah.
good? You well, mate?
Yeah, we're good, good. I hope you enjoyed your international break.
I had a wonderful international break. It was a lot to travel, about 28 hours each way, but we made it. This is the lengths that we go for our clubs.
hmm hmm
And what I got for it, Nigel? I got the most boring 1-0 victory over Chelsea that a man could ever dream of. And I'll take it. I'll take it.
Hey,
Okay?
anyway, a win's a win. A win's a
A
win.
win is a win.
And when you travel somewhere, as long as you watch a win, that's all that matters. The
It
worst thing
doesn't
is
matter.
when you travel for ages and you don't win and you lose.
Yeah, that would have been terrible. It's cool. People have asked me how the game was, and um I think the biggest thing was watching it from a different angle. I'm used to watching the game from the TV angle all the time,
Mm,
and like you kind of figure out where the ball's going based on the angle and who's kicking it. And so then when you're sat in the corner, like the angles are all off, and you're like, he's not gonna get the ball, and then the ball drops exactly where it's supposed to be. So that was a trip.
yeah.
It was also super cool to see. The whole pitch, like the camera only shows so many players, right? And so you can see the players when they wouldn't otherwise be on camera, and you can
Mm.
just like the one who stood out the most to me was Gabriel, and the way that he just commands space and that like nobody wants to go anywhere near him
Could you
was pretty neat.
could you hear him though all the time? That
Oh yeah,
high
it's
pitched
amazing. It's
shrieking.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
His
yeah,
voice is super special. It was epic.
yeah.
And Mark Cucurella always trying to get one in with the opposing fans. He definitely feeds off of that. It
Yeah.
was it was an experience for sure. So super excited to have done that. Last time we talked, after people follow us on X at We All Follow Pod, you know, last time we chatted, the EFL Cup Final hadn't been played. So
Mm.
let's get a quick second, Nigel, for your thoughts on the final. First domestic trophy for Newcastle in 70 years.
Yes, and it's something what I thought was going to happen. I thought as soon as that final was made, I was like, Newcastle are going to win that. And what I didn't expect uh, leading to it was that Liverpool would be falling into a bit of disarray. The two games against PSG, they got outplayed. They got outplayed by PSG over two legs. In between that, Liverpool had a game against Southampton in which Darwin Núñez should have been sent off in the first half. Then went and scored an equaliser because they were losing 1-0. Then got a penalty for him to go 2-1 up. Now, they were lucky to get out of that game with a point, with 3 points. They then got outplayed by Newcastle. Newcastle absolutely obliterated them in that final. It was one-way traffic until the last 5 minutes. And in the last 5 minutes of injury time, Liverpool went full on old Klopp style launch it. Let's just get go as big as we can. But for Liverpool, thinking that breaks come at a good time, the international breaks come at a good time. They can reset. Imagine having an international break where you're supposed to be resetting, and what you do is you find out that your star right back, your boyhood player, the kid who's come through the ranks, is going to leave for free and do you out of £75 million in transfer fee. I mean, oof, that's gonna set that changing room could be a bit toxic at this moment in time. And so for Newcastle, it's great news. I mean, people keep banging on about Isaac and stuff like that, but everything what I've heard, Isaac's well happy in Newcastle. He's just won a trophy. So for Newcastle, it's I think that they push on now. I think they finish in the top five. Uh, for Liverpool, oof, you need to get back on the horse quick. And is there any worse game to get back on the horse quick than Everton?
Yeah, and we'll
That's
get there.
not
We'll get
ideal.
there with the Merseyside derby coming up as Liverpool's next game. Yeah, I think for Newcastle, obviously their fans on a nice day out, they were all over the city. I was all over the city, and everywhere I went, they were. So they were definitely enjoying their time in London, and good for them. I think for Eddie Howe, it puts a stamp on what's been a I think you have to say objectively like a positive run that he's
Mm,
had there in Newcastle, qualifying them for Champions League, getting some good wins along the way, both in Champions League and throughout the league, really consistently bringing them up into the conversation of the European places for the last several years. And now he has, and their fans have a trophy to show for it, right? So,
mm,
I mean, if you're a team that's come from, the old days of Newcastle when they were sponsored by Newcastle Brown Ale and the heritage of that club to being totally lost with Mike Ashley and having no investment in the team and all of that stuff into um, coming back, being in contention for Europe, and I think that it's a big day for that club.
mm.
Um, Moment of the week. I think international week. You can bring it back to the EFL Cup. What do you got for me, Nigel?
I mean, the obvious one is Miles Lewis-Skelly are absolutely ripping it up for England. 2 games, goal. He was brilliant in that. He was brilliant in that first game. Uh, but my moment of the week didn't involve England. Uh, it didn't. It didn't involve any players who play for Arsenal. My moment of the week was the slapping what Brazil got in the Super Classico in the Monumental. I mean,
Mm.
wow. 4-1, absolutely slapped up by Argentina. And remember, this is Argentina now, what doesn't have Messi, so there's no superhero, but they are still ploughing it. And I looked at that Brazil starting 11 and I was like, what is this? They have got some dross in there. And it just goes to show they've been pretty solid. Uh, they've been pretty solid when they've played Gabriel Magalhaes at the back. The first game that he misses, they fall to pieces. So there we go.
Yeah, that was definitely somebody that I work with is Argentinian, and I haven't spoken to him in a while, and we had to call him, and he was like, "You see the game?" um, So yeah, I think my official moment of the week and also my stats corner is going to be Miles Lewis-Skelly becoming the youngest debutant goal scorer for England. Um, but my moment of the week is really shout out to Dan Byrne. I don't know if you saw there was an open letter that Dan Byrne's dad had written a few years back on
Mm.
their last trip to Wembley. Go read it if you have a chance. Dan Burns' dad writing a really sweet letter about um, the emotional roller coaster of being a supporter and being of a team, and then your son being a footballer and their journey through playing through the leagues in different teams and ultimately playing for his boyhood club. Um, and then for him to score the goal in the cup final is just it's the stuff that we see in movies, and that we don't really get to see in real life. So I thought that was pretty
I'll,
neat.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what a lot of people didn't see at the cup final was Elliot Anderson, midfielder for Nottingham Forest. He's just left Newcastle last summer. He was in the stand with his dad, and when Newcastle had won, and they were going around all the fans at the front clapping, all of them were pointing because Elliot Anderson's going mental in the stand, and they're all clapping him because he should have been there. He should have been there. They had to sell him for PSR. And he was going. He was as mental. He was going as mental as they were, and they'd won it. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, and Dan Burn also getting his first cap for England over this international break. It's been funny to see the odd couple of Big Dan Byrne and Miles Lewis-Skelly being paraded for all of the pictures as the two new guys, the two new call-ups in the England camp. Thomas Tuchel, uh, Tommy Two Goals, he's really coming strong with their way of playing, and
Mm.
what any reasonable observer would say is the 1000% opposite and pendulum swing from what Gareth Southgate was doing as the England manager, wanting to bring in energy, wanting to bring that attacking flavor. So I think if you are an England supporter, or if you are a Premier League follower and like to see those guys do well, then at least at minimal, it's a lot more entertaining than it has been,
Mm.
bringing that want to win the game instead of just participate and see what happens. Let's take a look, Nigel. We have some matches to look forward to. FA Cup quarterfinals. We've got Fulham hosting Crystal Palace. Forest heading down to Brighton. Aston Villa going to Preston, and Bournemouth hosting Man City. Obviously, I think there's the London Derby we could go on. There's the Iriola Pep situation. What strikes your fancy out of these four? Maybe let's do one more in depth, and we can go from there into the midweek Premier League games.
So the one what I want to watch the most is Brighton versus Forest. Bear in mind that Forest spanked Brighton 7-0 only about 4 weeks ago. The week before that, Forest had got spanked by Bournemouth 5-0. Brighton can't keep a clean sheet. Forest, having kept loads of clean sheets, are now also struggling at the back. I think this could be good. I think Brighton Forest could be a shootout. I think, but you need to think about it. Forest have got Murillo coming back from international duty with Brazil. It's never nice flying back, but he's flying back with João Pedro. So Murillo's just got spanked by Argentina, and he's flying back with Brazil centre forward who also got spanked. Well, he didn't even get on the pitch, João Pedro, which shocked me. Shocked me that. But he's flying. They'll be flying back together. And João Pedro was saying to him, "You just got spanked by Julian Alvarez. I'm going to come and spank you now next weekend." So yeah, I think that could be a good game. There's a lot of, if you look at that, there's been a lot of players away on international duty. Gibbs White didn't even get a chance. I don't understand that with England, but he's been away. You've got your ones like Elanga away with Sweden, and Milenkovic has been playing. Blah blah blah. So everyone's been busy. Matt Sells with Belgium. Everyone's been busy and stuff. So let's see. Brighton Forest. I think that's the game. I think that's the game. I think that one will have the most quality. To be fair, I know we've got Bournemouth and Man City there, but I think Brighton and Forest could be a real good game.
Okay, Brighton and Forest. Do Preston have a chance against Aston Villa? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you see that one going extra time? Where how do they, if you're Preston, how do you make it through to the next round?
Uh, I think Villa will win, but I think Preston have got a chance, but I think Villa will win. I think Villa will win. I think it'll be in normal time. But if Preston get a goal, got an early goal, they're good enough defensively to not concede. Uh, if they've got something to hold on to, they've got a big striker who scores goals. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what team Villa put out. Bearing in mind that again, a lot of them will have been away on international duty. Again, there is Premier League games midweek, and Premier League games are really important for Villa at this moment in time. I know it'd be nice to win a trophy, an FA Cup, but Villa are in a battle to get into the top five, and
And they have
they
to go to
need,
Brighton. Their next match is away at
yeah,
Brighton in the midweek.
and they've got to finish in the top five because if they're not in the UCL, they have got serious money problems. They need that.
It's also, that's a direct opportunity to take points off of a European rival, right? So
Yeah,
I certainly think if you're the board, as much as it is and would be nice to continue into the FA Cup semis, which, I think they have a chance to, even with a somewhat rotated lineup with the
yeah,
players that they do have, especially seeing as they brought in all those players on loan. they definitely need to focus on that midweek game, and that brings us into the table. Arsenal 12 back of Liverpool at this point, with the even amount of games played. Forest behind in third, seemingly have a hold on third for the time being.
Mm.
Chelsea followed by Man City. Newcastle, as we discussed, with the game in hand, but on 47 points. They are technically in pole place among the next three teams to get that next spot. And then, as we talked about, Newcastle and Brighton both on 47, Fulham and Villa on 45, Bournemouth on 44. Brentford holding steady in 11th. Crystal Palace shooting up the table into 12th with 4 wins in their last 5. And then you have Man United and Spurs switching places after last week's results. Everton continuing to steadily beat the drum and continue to pick up results that put them in 15th. West Ham in 16th. Wolves continuing to stay in 17th. Obviously, it's obvious which teams will be going down at this point. So it's just a matter of getting the results, continuing to bring the points in, and try to avoid any major injuries down the stretch. Midweek games, midweek football. We have, I think the big one is the Merseyside Derby that we discussed, right? With Liverpool hosting Everton in their first match back after the international break. So, you have players flying all over the world. You're coming back, and then you're going into a Merseyside Derby off of the back of that EFL Cup loss.
Mm.
Is that your double chance of the week?
Everton, yeah. Everton to get a draw or win. I think is a great shout. The other one, so it's a great. This slate of games is fantastic when you look at it. I think Arsenal Fulham will be a great game of football. I expect Arsenal to win. I think it's going to be a really good game of football. Fulham are Fulham are no pushovers at this moment in time. They are a good football team, but I do expect Arsenal to win. I expect Wolves to get the better of West Ham, believe it or not. I know that's pushing it, but I think they will. Potter's been a bit unlucky with centre forwards, with forwards being injured or not firing for him at the moment in time, and it'd be key to see if Evan Ferguson plays a bit more, seeing as he scored for Ireland in the international break. But the big games, these three massive games are in this midweek slot. Forest versus Man United is the first one because Forest, like I said, they're winning. They're keeping hold of that third place, and they could really, really stunt Man United's resurgence from 15th to 13th. They could really stunt that, and but on the other hand, if Man United they are getting better, a bit better. Man United stop Forest, all of a sudden, the Forest get a bit squeaky bum, especially if City beat Leicester as expected to do. Does that just give them a little bit of, we might not get your Champions League? And I think Forest should actually. Forest should finish in the top in the top 5 now. But yeah, so that Forest Man U game, Brighton Villa, like we spoke about already, is huge. That is a Champions League 6-pointer. One of them two could get in there, and I don't think Brighton will, but I think Villa can. And the next one, apart from Liverpool Everton, forget Chelsea Tottenham. Just park that one for a minute because that's a whole new ball game. Newcastle Brentford is the other one. Newcastle are coming off the back of drinking themselves into a stupor, having won the cup, celebrating, and then they've got to go straight into a game. They've got to go into a game now against Brentford, and Brentford are in a European push. They could still get into Europe, top 8. They could get into Europe, and Brentford are no slouchers. They will score goals, and if Mbemo and Wissa are firing, Newcastle could be in trouble. That game is going to have goals. That game will have goals.
It will definitely be a party up at St. James's Park. Their first match
Mm,
back after the trophy. I'm sure it'll be paraded around the ground before, during, and after the match. Um, the fans will be up for it. I think it's going to be an evening game. People are going to get off work and stuff like that. But, I think that it's always tough going up there. And, I think that ultimately Newcastle will be able to get it done in that one. I think for me, the biggest one, like we already discussed, Aston Villa playing at the weekend. Um, I anticipate that they'll make it past Preston
mm.
with some rotation. What's the chap's name who's been can't stop scoring for Villa? The guy they have on loan. I just am drawing a blank on his name.
Oh, Marco
Uh,
Asensio.
yeah, Asensio. He seems to score for fun, so I wouldn't be surprised if he bags one or two on the weekend. Um, but yeah, that Brighton one is going to be really interesting. Brighton, Aston Villa. I think Villa have to win that match if they
Mm,
want to make it into Champions League, and they don't really have a choice. In those matches, I back Villa to make that one happen. Personally, I just think they have the skills and the players. Their next match after that will be Forest, which will be another one of those really important games. So it doesn't really get easier for Villa in a lot of ways. Um, they have
mm.
Brighton, they have Forest at home, and then they have PSG. Uh, Sandwiched in the PSG is Southampton, which obviously they'll be able to rotate a fair amount for that one. But then after PSG, it's Newcastle, Man City, Fulham, Bournemouth. Are the next ones after that, and obviously if they were to make it past PSG, the next round against the winner of Real Madrid
Arsenal and
Arsenal,
Madrid.
right? That would be sandwiched between, I believe, the Newcastle and um, somewhere between Newcastle, Man City, and Fulham.
Mm.
So definitely not easy games. And like you said, they really have to get Champions League
Mm.
in order to salvage their PSR
And
situation.
another thing is, if they did actually, believe it or not, against PSG, their superstar striker can't play because he's only on loan. Asensio is only on loan, so I do believe that because his parent club is PSG, I believe he can't play. If it had been sold, he could play, but I believe he's ineligible. I have to check, but I think he's ineligible, which means that the others have got to start picking up now. But like I said, the big game for me, the big game of the week is Chelsea and Tottenham, and I think it's relegation. I think it's a manager sack showdown because these two hate each other. I think Tottenham. I was talking to a Tottenham fan at the weekend, and I said, "Who do you hate the most? Do you hate Arsenal, Chelsea, or West Ham?" And he said, "Probably West Ham because they're closer to us." I said, "Who next?" And he said, "I'd like to say your lot." He says, "But it's got to be Chelsea." So he hates West Ham and Chelsea more than Arsenal, and there is real hatred between Chelsea and Tottenham games. Are usually nasty. Usually a bit of needle there. I think this one's a sack off because if Tottenham beat Chelsea, where does that leave Enzo Maresca? Where does that leave Maresca? The fact that they could bottle top five, they should have been nailed on for top five, Chelsea, but they could bottle top five and not get Champions League. If Chelsea beat Tottenham, Ange will have lost 16 league games this season in 30. 16 out of 30. And Tottenham will be in complete no man's land. Complete. I don't think Tottenham will get past the next round in the Europa League. Frankfurt, I think, will hammer them. Uh, so yeah, does Maresca or does Ange get sacked if their team loses midweek? Would be the question.
The funny part is that match has like draw written all over it. It's like a movable force versus,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that
yeah.
you have Chelsea who can attack and Spurs who can't defend. But so like, does that just peter out into like a 1-1 or 2-2 draw? Possibly, because Chelsea finally are able to score goals, but Spurs can score too, kind of situation. Um, yeah, that one screams like mildly entertaining draw. Um, According to the internet, uh, loan teams from in UEFA competitions, loan players are allowed to play against their parent club.
Oh, okay.
So
That's interesting then.
Asensio he's on the website as being part of their squad and
Ooh,
registered for the next set of matches.
yeah, that'll be
Um,
interesting. Be interesting.
so
Imagine if you came on and knocked your parent team out.
that would be a bad look for PSG. Would not not be ideal for whoever sanctioned that departure. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think we hit on the big ones. The Liverpool Everton. You think that Everton will be able to get the result there at Anfield? When was the last time that Everton won at Anfield? Let's look that up while you talk.
Well, put it this way, I think it's only happened once in my lifetime while I've been watching football. I might be wrong, but I think I can only genuinely remember what Everton winning once. I don't think they've won anymore. I think they've drawn a few times, but I think all Everton's wins.
95.
Yeah, 95. Was
No,
it Paul?
99
Yeah, yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah. No,
Those were the
well,
last
yeah.
two.
I think I can remember 95. I can't remember that. I can't remember 99. But I think they've drawn about three as well. Have we drawn about three in that time? Nearly all
Sound
Everton's wins come at Goodison. Uh,
yeah.
but I've just got this feeling that Moisinho's got them playing, haven't they? And they're buoyant. Everton are buoyant, and believe it or not, if you look at the table, they've not lost many games. They've just drawn a load, a bit like Arsenal, really.
There's
And
been 7 draws since
yeah,
2000
yeah,
in the league at Anfield.
yeah, yeah,
So draw is not a super unlikely outcome. A
mm,
win, I would say, is an extraordinarily unlikely outcome.
yeah,
But crazier things have happened, right? That's why we watch the
mm,
games.
yeah. True, absolutely true.
I mean, and like we've said, they have been playing well. I mean, at the other match a couple weeks ago, I think that most rational observers would say that Everton deserved to win that one.
Yeah,
So obviously the home field advantage is massive, right? Um, but I don't think that anybody's expecting Everton to come in and win, right? And so when that pressure is off, yes, it's a derby, but you're facing the team that's in first by a mile. Nobody's expecting you to do it, and
mm,
it could be one of those situations where if you're Everton and you score early-ish, not too early, not like first 10 minutes early, but if you can score in like 15 to 30th minute and Liverpool heads are dropping, then anything can happen at that point, right?
mm. Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
And it could just as easily be like a Liverpool drubbing, right? Like Liverpool come back and exert their dominance on the league and they're like, "Hey, we're not giving this up. Any ideas that you guys thought about us conceding the title from this position are absolutely not happening."
I'll
Right?
tell you what though. I'll tell you what. If Arsenal beat Fulham and that gap's down to 9 points. If Liverpool did lose to Everton, what does that do? Psychologically, what does that
Oh,
do?
that would be awful. I mean, that's the last thing that you need if you're Liverpool.
I think it's worse for the Arsenal players. Believe it or not, it's worse for the Arsenal players because then you're kicking yourself and you're thinking, "Oh my God, drew with Forest, lost to West Ham, drew against Man United. Oof, if we'd have just put,
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, Nigel. But
yeah,
at that point, you got to start believing again. You got to go all in because honestly,
Ki-
genuinely though, right? If you're an Arsenal player, right, you win your game. Let's say the crazy thing happens, Everton wins, right? Um,
mm,
and the gap is 9. You still play Liverpool head to head at their gaff. That makes it
Yeah.
6. So now they just need to mess up in 3 matches. Obviously, you have to be perfect, but the margins become smaller. And I think
Yeah.
if you're a player, you have Saka's back, right? You get that you're boosted by his return, and you're like, hey, we have a chance. Like Mikel,
Mm.
Mikel is the guy who's like has the league as an option until it's mathematically impossible. And I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
sure he's been saying it the whole time like a crazy person and no one believes him. But the moment that something like that happens, you're like,
Mm.
maybe Mikel's not this
I,
crazy over after all.
I was just going to say, I mean, if they did lose, then it puts a little bit of pressure on. So Arsenal then go away to Everton at the weekend.
Yeah.
So Everton could be tricky. I mean, you could want them to win one game, you want them to play like plonkers the 3 days later. Not necessarily going to happen. But you need Arsenal to then go to Everton and get a result. Where I wonder if Everton will just roll over and say, "Ooh, tickle my belly," if they've done
I mean,
something.
the fans
Yeah,
might be learning Arsenal
yeah,
songs by that
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
Uh, but then for Arsenal, you're thinking, "Ooh, if we beat Real Madrid, we could get to a Champions League final. And if Liverpool keep on messing around, we could be in the so it could start playing on your mind. And I think for Arsenal, it's a case of one game at a time. Let's see
Yeah.
what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I
I
don't
mean,
think Liverpool
ultimately,
are.
I think the most
I,
likely outcome is that Liverpool are going to win, Arsenal will win, and it's going to play out, and
yeah,
Liverpool will win the
yeah,
league by somewhere between 9 and 12 points,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
not going to get any dramatics or anything like that, right?
yeah.
Um,
I think that's right, and and I've said for ages. I think Arsenal's best chance of a trophy this year was a Champions League because purely because our game suits the Champions League more. The style of football suits us more, and I just think we've got way more chance of winning games in the Champions League.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a lot of ways, if you're an Arsenal supporter, the the outcome that in terms of you might not want the most, but the outcome that might be best for the team is winning Arsenal winning against Fulham and Liverpool beating Everton,
Mm,
and that way the league's done, and then you can
mm,
really focus your energy on the Champions
yeah,
League for realsies this time, and not have that distraction in the background, for lack of a better word, and
yeah.
be able to put all of your energy and focus into that. But I think that's it for today, Nigel. Thanks for hopping on. Get some rest, buddy, and we'll be back next week.
Cheers, man. So have a good one, man.